As we begin Season 3 of House of the Dragon, there are currently 16 living dragons. Approximately 79 years later, during the events of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, there are none. Thus was the absolute brutality of the event known as the Dance of Dragons, a 2-year-long civil war which pitted Queen Rhaenyra Targaryen against the usurper King Aegon II. Episode 1 picks up halfway through this war with the Battle of the Gullet, a battle the book Fire and Blood describes as amongst the bloodiest sea battles in all of history. But before we get there, we have to take a step back. In the Vale of Arryn, north of Queen Rhaenyra's stronghold on Dragonstone, Rhaena Targaryen has chained a sheep for the wild dragon aptly named Sheepstealer. Rhaena is the youngest daughter of Daemon Targaryen and his second wife, Laena Velaryon, the former dragon rider of Vhagar who, several years later, would take Prince Aemond as its new master. Daemon's first wife was Rhea Royce, who died under mysterious circumstances in Season 1, with the show implying her death was at the hands of Daemon. Rhaena, unlike her older sister Baela, was not a dragon rider. The dragon egg given to her at birth grew cold and never hatched, while Baela's grew into the dragon known as Moondancer. This became a tremendous source of insecurity for Rhaena, thus spurring her desire to have a dragon of her own. In Season 2, Rhaena was tasked by Queen Rhaenyra to take her 3 youngest children, Princes Joffrey, Viserys II, and Aegon III, not to be confused with the usurper Aegon II, to the safety of the Vale, where they would then be taken by ship across the sea to Pentos. Pentos had long been friendly to the plight of the Targaryens, as Daemon and Laena spent several years there during Daemon's self-imposed exile. In a drastic departure from the book, Rhaena abandons her half-brothers as they make their way across the sea to Pentos, instead embarking on a quest to prove her worth and tame the wild dragon known as Sheepstealer. In the book, the little princes are intercepted by the Triarchy fleet before the Battle of the Gullet, where Aegon III escapes on his young dragon Stormcloud, and Viserys II is captured and sent to Lys, with Rhaenyra and the rest of the family believing him dead. The show does not tell us their fate, including that of Joffrey. As far as we know, they're still on their way to Pentos. Rhaena was supposed to be looking after the little princes and will surely face some sort of punishment for her actions. However, she also brings back with her a new dragon, albeit one who hasn't learned to take orders. Later in the episode, we'll see Sheepstealer rain fire on ships regardless of their side. Rhaena never rides Sheepstealer in the book. Instead, this honor is bestowed to a dragon seed by the name of Nettles, a small brown girl of 6 and 10 who delivered Sheepstealer a freshly slaughtered sheep every morning until he learned to accept and expect her. So it seems the writers have merged these two characters together. Dragon seeds are the illegitimate bastard children of Valyrian descent and include characters such as Hugh Hammer, Ulf, and Adam of Hull. Last season, in what some would call an act of desperation, Rhaenyra called all those who believed they had the blood of the dragon to attempt taming one of these riderless dragons during an event known as the Sowing of the Seeds. In return, they'd become knights and be bestowed with riches. This gamble paid off tremendously, with Rhaenyra's side amassing 10 dragons to Aegon's 4. While the odds are in Rhaenyra's favor, Aegon still possesses Vhagar, the largest and arguably strongest of all the dragons, ridden by his younger brother, Aemond. Back at King's Landing, Grand Maester Orwyle is put to the sword by Prince Aemond, who believes he's involved with the king's disappearance. Last season, Larys Strong, Lord of Harrenhal and Master of Whispers, whisked the wounded king away. Aegon could be killed by his younger brother at any moment, as it was Aemond who narrowly killed him at the Battle of Rook's Rest. Even if Aemond doesn't get him, there's the impending invasion of Rhaenyra and her dragons. We also know Larys has been playing the long game. He revealed to Aegon that he liquidated the wealth of Harrenhal and secretly transferred his gold to the Iron Bank of Braavos. So his plan is simple: escape across the narrow sea to Essos, allow Aegon's body the time it needs to desperately heal, and let Aemond and Rhaenyra tear each other apart, only for Aegon to return as the rightful savior of Westeros once all the dust has settled. It's Lord Jasper Wilde, the Master of Laws, who saves Orwell's hide by telling Aemond it was Lord Larys who whisk the enfeebled king away. On the outskirts of King's Landing, we find the king sitting on what Helena called a throne of wood, a stark contrast to the Iron Throne. They're stopped by a small contingent of House Staunton, whose lord swore themselves to Queen Rhaenyra before perishing at the Battle of Rook's Rest. Larys says they're making their way to White Harbor, the North's primary trading port under the control of House Manderly. That is, if we believe what Larys is saying is true. To pass, they must denounce Aegon the Usurper, which is easier said than done for the king. His stubbornness sees him nearly face the sword as Larys has to take drastic measures to save his hide, informing the man-at-arms that before him lays the king himself, and that turning them in alive will fetch a much higher price than dead. He'll even turn over his crown as proof. Keep in mind Rhaenyra and Aegon wear two different crowns with two very different meanings. Rhaenyra wears the crown that belonged to her father, King Viserys, which was originally forged for her great-grandfather, King Jaehaerys I. Aegon, however, has the Targaryen crown worn by Aegon the Conqueror himself, the founder of the Targaryen dynasty. These crowns represent two different types of legitimacy. Aegon's one of historical nostalgia and martial strength, and Rhaenyra's the legal decree of the previous monarch. Larys is doing everything he can to live. He's a man with no principle and will easily bend the knee to any rival should he see it to his advantage. His decision here is one of self-preservation, but the question is, if he and Aegon make it out of this alive, will he be able to convince the king it was done to save their lives? The last we see them, they are to be taken to Duskendale and sent on a ship to face judgment in front of Queen Rhaenyra. Speaking of Queen Rhaenyra, we see her grappling with the deal her mother-in-law and former childhood friend, Queen Dowager Alicent Hightower, made with her at the end of Season 2. Alicent sees a grim future for her and her family. Aemond's turned tyrannical, Aegon's on the brink of death, and Rhaenyra outmatches Aegon in dragons almost 3-1. Alicent has risked her life coming here and sues for peace, an act that would be considered treason. But Alicent sees this as a way out, a way to save her family and avoid needless bloodshed. At least the blood of her daughter Helena and granddaughter Jaehaera, the only surviving child after the events of Blood and Cheese. In the book, Helena has a third child, a son named Maelor, however this boy is never mentioned in the show. In return for sparing their lives, Alicent would open the city gates for Rhaenyra and offer Aegon's head, who she still believes to be bedridden in the Red Keep. That's the delicious irony of the situation. If and when Rhaenyra gets to King's Landing, she'll no doubt think she's been deceived when she finds the king is nowhere to be found. Then there's the matter of Aemond, who Alicent said would be days away fighting at Harrenhal with Vhagar. The city would be defenseless. With Aegon's abandonment, Aemond has named himself king and decides to stay in King's Landing. So not only is King Aegon not in the city, but it's now protected by the largest and fiercest of all dragons, 2 if you count Helena's dragon, Dreamfire. But Helena will not ride. This is something she told Aemond in Season 2. She has no desire to burn anyone, and besides, she already knows how the war will play out. Helena is known as a dreamer with prophetic visions. This is how she knew Aemond deceived his own brother at the Battle of Rook's Rest. She tells her brother that she has seen his death, he is to be swallowed by the God's Eye Lake, and that Aegon will eventually return to the throne. So if this future is already written, participating in this violence is both horrific and futile. And just a reminder, if you're liking this video, take a moment to like and subscribe. I make these videos all by myself, and every bit of engagement helps. Rhaenyra has assembled the Black Council, or at least the members who are still at Dragonstone. Among them is Maester Gerardus, Lord Bartimos Celtigar, Rhaenyra's eldest son, Prince Jacaerys, Baela Velaryon, and Mysaria, the unofficial mistress of Whisperers. Against their advisement, she commands they make their return to King's Landing in 2 days' time, with Corlys Velaryon, Hand of the Queen and Lord of the Tides, to send a contingent of his ships to help in this takeover. It is to be a bloodless coup. When Alicent returns to King's Landing, she finds Aemond on the throne, a position he's coveted for some time. In the book, however, Aemond never names himself as king, rather protector of the realm when Aegon could not continue his duties as king while recovering from his injuries. For Alicent's plan to work, she must convince Aemond to make way for Harrenhal and engage his uncle Daemon in battle. This will be difficult since Aemond knows the best position right now is to stay put. His mother's cousin, Ormond Hightower, marches up the Mander with 15,000 men. Then there's Daeron Targaryen, King Viserys and Alicent's fourth child, who rides with them on his dragon Tessarion. During Season 1 and 2, he had been living in Oldtown as Ormond's cupbearer and squire. Combine this with the arrival of the Triarchy, a fleet 3 times as powerful as the Sea Snakes, it's just a matter of time for all the pieces to fall into place. Daemon and a host of men from the Riverlands finish off the Lannister army. We can even see dead lions, which we saw being carted in Season 2. It appears the writers have combined 2 battles from the book, the Battle of the Red Fork and Battle by the Lakeshore. It was the battle at the Red Fork that Jason Lannister, Lord of Casterly Rock, would fall. You might remember Jason as Tywin Lannister's twin brother who attempted to court a young Rhaenyra in Season 1. But this guy over here, known as Roderick Dustin, Lord of Barrowton and head of House Dustin, throws Jason's decapitated head. It was Roderick who led 2,000 northern soldiers, known as the Winterwolves, south in battle against a contingent of Lannisters in the Battle by the Lakeshore. His line,
"We have come to die for the Dragon Queen,"
is actually said to Lady Sabitha Frey in the book. Alicent's brother, Gwayne Hightower, has the unfortunate role of witnessing war crimes by his men and the even darker crime of Sir Criston turning emo. After witnessing the carnage at the Battle of Rook's Rest, Sir Criston Cole, Hand of the King to Aegon II, has become disillusioned with the world. Once a man of honor, Sir Criston is not swayed by Gwayne's call to principles. After all, what good is honor when all that surrounds you is doom and ruin? As he'll later state,
"We'll all become beasts before our end."
3 dragon seeds, Ulf, Hugh, and Adam, await orders from Queen Rhaenyra on the outskirts of the God's Eye. We learn of Ulf's rough upbringing as he wonders about Hugh's parentage. Where does their dragon blood come from? In the show, Ulf claims to be the bastard son of Balon the Brave, the 4th son of King Jaehaerys I, which would make him half-brother of King Viserys and Daemon Targaryen. Hugh never answers Ulf here. However, in Season 2, we learn that Hugh's mother was a Targaryen daughter of King Jaehaerys. While never mentioned, we can determine this is Sarah Targaryen, Jaehaerys' 9th child who fled Westeros and became a powerful madam in Volantis. Then there's Adam of Hull. He is the bastard child of Corlys Velaryon. However, in the book, his parentage is a matter of heavy debate. Unlike the other dragon seeds who had to tame their dragons, Adam's dragon, Seasmoke, came to him. The show never explains how Adam is a dragon seed. However, there are 3 theories. One, that House Velaryon and Targaryen have been so intermingled for years that the blood made its way to Adam. 2, that Seasmoke was attracted to Adam because he smelled like his former rider, Adam's half-brother Laenor, who we saw flee to Essos in Season 1. And 3rd, the whole idea that only Targaryens can ride a dragon might be a total myth altogether. In the book, Adam's brother Alan, who we'll get to in a bit, tried to claim Sheepstealer, but was nearly killed by dragonfire in the process. Ulf's real motivation in becoming a dragon rider has nothing to do with honor and everything to do with wealth and women. We can see how easily he's willing to disobey Rhaenyra's orders, so keep an eye on him in the episodes to come. Alicent forges a letter in the name of now King Aemond. It is to be sent to her cousin, Lord Ormond Hightower, with orders to stay put until Aemond can join him in 3 days' time. Currently, Alicent doesn't even know if Aemond will be leaving the city, so this act is most likely a tactic to stall the Hightower army until Rhaenyra has successfully taken over the city. Alan of Hull, first mate to his father, Lord Corlys Velaryon, has a little father-son time aboard the Sea Snake, the Valyrian flagship we saw him repairing over the course of Season 2. Alan and Corlys have a precarious relationship. Corlys abandoned him and Adam, leaving them to a life of poverty. It was Corlys's former wife, Rhaenys, who fell during the Battle of Rook's Rest, who advocated for his bastard children to be, quote, raised up and honored, not hidden beneath the tides. The death of Rhaenys left Corlys grieving with no wife, hence him seeking out his bastard children. As he states to Alan, I cannot fully mend the breach between us, but I do accept it is of my making. But Alan is still a bastard. He does not have the Valyrian name, nor does Corlys have the ability to give it to him. Only a ruling monarch can legitimize a bastard. Suddenly, the alarm rings, warning of the approaching Triarchy fleet. The Triarchy was an alliance of the free cities of Myr, Lys, and Tyrosh across the sea in Essos. Initially, Corlys believes it must be the Lannisters or Greyjoys, not expecting his old nemesis from the Stepstones, the Triarchy. This feud goes back decades, and we saw a bit of it play out in Season 1 during the Battle of the Stepstones, a strategic chain of islands separating Essos from Westeros. Corlys operated the wealthiest naval trade network in all of Westeros, a network which required safe travel of ships between precarious islands of the Stepstones. So when the Triarchy's commanders, led by Craghas Drahar, imposed crippling tolls hindering Corlys's trade, he embarked on a war known as the War of the Stepstones that lasted 9 years. Daemon would join Corlys on his dragon Caraxes, and later be crowned by Corlys as the king of the Stepstones and the Narrow Sea, a crown he would later give to his brother, helping mend their relationship. It soon becomes apparent to Tywin Lannister that Sharako Lahar, the leader of the Triarchy fleet, has no intention of living up to their agreement they made last season. Sharako doesn't care about Tywin's war. All she cares about is gutting the Sea Snake. This is a personal battle, as over the years Corlys would have killed thousands of her men, and she is hell-bent on revenge. In arguably the most WTF scene of the episode, Alicent attempts to sway her son to head to Harrenhal. This is prefaced by giving in to his delusions of grandeur, stating she failed Aegon and that it should have been him to be king. Olenna told Alicent that Aemond is fearful of Rhaenyra's dragons, a claim he vehemently denies, but Alicent uses this fear to convince him to fight Daemon over at Harrenhal. She tells him she couldn't bear to lose him, and he interprets her motherly love as sexual, and he goes in for a kiss.
What the
I believe in any other situation, Alicent would have rejected this outright. However, she needs Aemond to do as he's told. Aemond has always had a deep-seated need for validation from his mother, the desire to be the good son and capable ruler that Aegon never was. He never got this motherly love and instead looked to others, such as the older brothel owner, for this love and affection. So in a twisted way, Aemond has associated motherly love with sexual. Aemond agrees to go to Harrenhal, promising a feast in Alicent's honor, while his uncle Daemon's head looks down on a spike. Ulf is visited by a black goat. This is an animal that appeared to Daemon all throughout Season 2 and evokes an eerie folk horror vibe, matching the mysteriousness of Alice Rivers. Alice is a healer residing at Harrenhal, however the accounts of Septon Eustace and Mushroom refer to her as a witch. One such account claims she is hundreds of years old and practices dark magic to maintain her youthful appearance. This wouldn't be the first character to deceive others with her looks, as Melisandre, also known as the Red Witch, revealed her true form in Season 6 of Game of Thrones. Alice was able to predict the death of Lord Grover Tully and revealed to Daemon his fate at the foot of a weirwood tree, a fate which saw Rhaenyra on the throne, the invasion of the White Walkers, a landscape of dead dragons, and the birth of Daenerys Targaryen's dragons from Game of Thrones Season 1. Alice's appearance coincided with the God's Eye's mystical properties. The God's Eye is the largest lake in Westeros, sitting south of Harrenhal. It is said to be the most concentrated locus of ancient magic south of the Neck. In the middle lies the Isle of Faces, where the first men and children of the Forest signed the Pact over 10,000 years ago, ending their centuries-long war. The island is guarded by the Sacred Order of the Green Men. It is heavily implied this satyr-like creature is one of the Green Men, a group said to possess profound mystical abilities. Daemon briefly saw one in Season 2. Alice tells the Dragonseed they're missing the battle and that the Queen needs them at Dragonstone. First of all, how does she even know a battle is going on? We never see the Dragonseed actually leave, but it's heavily implied that they do. The Dragonseed leaving the God's Eye sets Aemond up for an eventual one-on-one battle with his uncle Daemon. Alice had prophesied that Daemon would die in this place. Baela arrives back on Dragonstone with news of war in the Gullet. Rhaenyra wants to join, but is locked in her chambers by her son Jace. This is enforced by Sir Laurent, a member of the Queen's Guard who has sworn to protect the Queen even against herself. In the book, Rhaenyra is never locked away in her chambers. Instead, the battle is joined by 5 dragon riders on Rhaenyra's side: Jace, Hugh, Ulf, Adam, and Nettles. Rhaena and Baela are never apart. Jace believes the surprise attack is a ruse to lure out Rhaenyra, similar to how Rhaenys was ambushed by Vhagar at the Battle of Rook's Rest. Jace also doesn't want to lose another family member, like how he lost his brother Lucerys. He asks Baela to join him. Way back in Season 1, Jace was betrothed to Baela to solidify the alliance between Rhaenyra and House Velaryon. The Battle of the Gullet is in full swing. Shirako Lohar commands her ship the Bitch Fist to break free from the fleet and pursue Corlys Velaryons on his ship the Sea Snake. Unable to match Bitch Fist's speed, Corlys makes for a precarious passage fraught with deadly rocks and a lowering tide. But if there's anyone who can make such a journey, it's the Lord of the Tide. This whole set piece is not in the book, nor is the fight between Corlys, Lohar, and Alan. We never find out what happens to Corlys. The last we see him, he's flung off the side of the ship. However, if the show follows the book, Corlys will survive. We also don't know the fate of Tywin Lannister. After being flung off the ship, did he manage to get out of his armor and make it to shore, or did he sink to his death? In the book, he's never even at the Battle of the Gullet, so this will be interesting to see in the episodes to come. The second major event of the Battle of the Gullet is the death of Jace and Vermax. One could argue that it was Sheepstealer's pursuit of Jace that led him right into the crosshairs of a grapnel, the anti-dragon weapon that would eventually sink the beast into the depths below. This will surely cause a rift between Rhaena and her sister Baela, not to mention the queen herself. Jace is able to free himself from his dragon, but is subsequently shot and killed by Triarchy forces. So not only does Rhaenyra lose a dragon this episode, but also a son. In the book, the Battle of the Gullet was costly for both sides. Thousands died, Corlys's treasures in High Tide were burned by Triarchy soldiers, Spicetown was razed never to be rebuilt, and the Triarchy would play no further part in the war. So as we end the episode, the stage is being set for Alicent's deal with Rhaenyra to unfold. Will the aftermath of the Gullet change Rhaenyra's plan to take King's Landing, or will it embolden her further? I hope you'll stick with me as we continue to break down the show. Thanks for watching, be sure to like and subscribe, and for more bad takes, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember, Daddy loves you very much.